Alright, so welcome back everybody. So for this video, I'm going to show you guys how to play this theme park board game called Tenpenny Parks. So let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about how you're going to score victory points in this game. And then after I talk about how you can score victory points in this game, I'm going to explain each of these steps, starting with the top and working our way down. Okay? And then we'll talk about placement bonuses when it's time to talk about placement bonuses and placement rules for that matter. So one of the ways you're going to score victory points in this game is by building attractions in your amusement park, okay? You're going to purchase various amusement park rides and things. So for instance, this labyrinth here, at the end of the game, if I have it, it's going to give me 3 victory points for having it if I build this labyrinth in my amusement park. So hence here's the tile. So I'd need to find a place to put it, okay? But yes, that's the idea. You want to build amusement park rides and attractions for your park to score victory points. Another way you're going to score victory points, however, is when we get to it, we'll explain it further, but during the advertising step here, okay? During that step, we can score victory points during that step. I'll explain further on that, but that's another way you will score victory points is that way. Another way you will score victory points is one of the things we're trying to focus on in this game is we're trying to basically have the most thrilling park. So that's thrill. You might want to have the most thrilling park. You might want to have the most awe-inspiring park. And you also might want to have the most joyful park, okay? And so these little discs are going to go up when we build amusement park rides, when we cover bonuses that are on our amusement park field here, and that sort of thing. And so at the end of the game, if one of us was able to get our disc past the 8th area, so each of these, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If you can get your disc, your colored disc, on this emotion track, on any one of these, at the end of the game, if I, for instance, was here, then I would get 5 victory points at the end of the game for having a really super thrilling park. That also means that even though I was here, if my opponent was here, we would still both score 5 victory points because we both had thrilling parks. It does not matter if it's on top or above, as long as we have passed this threshold here. And then it would be the same for these as well. So if we had our discs this high up on the awe emotion track, then we'd score another 5 points here. And if we had our discs all the way up on the joyful track, that would score us another 5 victory points. But that's really hard to do. Being a jack of all trades, I think, is impossible. If you focus on one of those 3 traits the most, you'll likely get 1, maybe 2 past that threshold, but not 3. So while you can work on all 3 of these really well, you might want to focus on one in particular, okay? And another way you score victory points is also at the end of the game, each of us are going to get some of these goal cards. We get 3 and we get to keep 2, so we get to look at 3 and keep 2. And so based on what our goal cards is, we're going to score victory points. So for instance, this is the most drenched goal. If I have at least 3 undersea attractions, I'm going to get 3 victory points. That means I need 1, 2, 3 of these rides because this is the drenched rides, okay? Which, makes sense. Poseidon's Slide, Maelstrom, Nautical Turmoil, for instance. I would need 3 of those in my park at the end of the game to score this goal, okay? So that's how that's going to work for a goal, for instance. And there's, like I said, there's a variety of different goals, so I might have the most drenched, but I might also have the most awesome, which means I need to be highest on the awe track, emotion track. So if my disc, which is purple, was the highest on this track, at the end of the game, I would score 3 victory points. So that would give me an incentive to try to build rides that give me these bonuses that, allow me to move my disc on that track. Another potential goal I could potentially have is you could have like the most variety. If you have one of each of these attractions, you score victory points, or the most joyful amusement park could score you 3 victory points. So goals is another way you're going to score victory points in this game. And then the last way you would score victory points in this game is at the end of the game, if you have, like, for instance, this is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 attractions. If you have at least 6 of these attractions, and that can include these smaller ones too, if you have 6 of these attractions, then you're going to score 5 victory points if you have at least 6. If you have 8 of these at the end of the game, though, that includes the little ones, which will probably be easier with the little ones, then you'll score 10 victory points. But yes, that's another way you'll score victory points in this game. All right, so now that I've explained how you're going to score victory points in this game, let me explain how you play the game. So first, let's talk about the income step, because you're always going to do these in order. During the income step is when you gain money. Now, at the beginning of the game, you are going to start with some money. Each player starts with 7 money, okay? But during the income phase, even for the first round, you're going to get some money. You're actually going to get 3 money during the income phase, at least. For the first round, you'll get 3, only 3. But the next rounds, you might get more than 3. And how is that? Well, one of the things you can build in this game is you can build concession stands. And so it's really tiny, but this little concession stand, which sells shirts, gives me a little bonus, but you'll notice it has a $1 on it. So for every round that I have this built in my amusement park, I'm going to score an additional money, or an additional dollar bill, basically, for the income phase. So that's nice. Some of these have 2s on them as well. So that's one of the ways you'll get extra money during the income phase. Another way you'll potentially get extra money during the income phase is if you build one of these stores. So this is the store, these are the store cards basically, and they can only be purchased here and built here at this location. And only one of these can actually be built per round, and you'll understand why later. But if you build one of these don't give you victory points. So these, while the rest of these cards, building them will give you victory points at the end of the game, but these don't. You'll see it says 0 victory points. But at the beginning of each round during the income phase, you're going to score some extra money. So this one would give me 2 additional money, for instance. And some give you 3, some give you 2. So that's how that's going to work, okay? So that's how the income phase works. So let me talk about the action step next. There's several different actions in this game, and you're going to start with 3 workers. Each player gets 3 workers per round, and there is a way to get an additional worker for the round, and we'll talk about that later. But you might have 4 workers in a round. It's possible. So one of the things that you can do on your turn is you can go to the bank. So this is the banker. If you take that action, you get 2 money right away. Okay? So if you take that action, you get $2 bills. That's how that action's going to work. If you go to the arborist, which is here, the arborist is going to remove 2 trees of your choice from basically your player board here. And so, well, the reason why this is important is when you're building, you are not allowed to build on trees. So that wouldn't work. I'd have to build around it somehow. And yes, it's possible to build around trees, but not always. And so they're going to be in your way. Trees are going to be in your way. And so you're going to want to try to remove them to build the bigger buildings, especially. And so if you go and put your worker here, you get to remove 2 trees each time you go here, okay? And you can go here and here and here and here as many times as you want. These 4 actions, you can go as many times as you want for sure. So you can remove all your trees in the first round if you so chose. Not that I would suggest not doing that, but you could. Another thing you can do is you can send a worker here to the contractor, okay? Let's see if we can zoom in. Okay, well, it's upside down, but you can kind of see that this is the contractor. This is easier to see. Arborist, this is the banker, and this is the realtor. We'll explain the realtor in a moment, but let's talk about this location first. So if I go here to the contractor here, it allows me to basically build one of these concession stands. And this gets refreshed every round, and it's based on how many players are playing the game, times 2. So if you're playing a 2-player game, there's only going to be 4 to choose from. But you can choose one of these to build, okay? And then put into your amusement park, all right? And you can do that. So that's another type of action you can do, is you can go there. All right, so, and then another action you can take is you can go to the realtor here. Now, when you go to the realtor, it's going to cost you some money. It costs you 3 money if you decide to take the realtor action. What does the realtor action do? It allows you to take one of these tiles here, and they're all the same, okay? But it allows you to take a tile and place it on either the left or the right to make your park even bigger, so you have more room for building your attractions. And you can put it on the left or the right, and you can just keep adding. There's no limit to the amount of these you can do, but it is expensive to do. So I found myself only doing it twice in the whole game. But, you know, you might do it more than me. Who knows? So that's another action you can take. And then the 5th action that you can take is you can place your worker at one of these building sites, okay? So let's say I wanted to go here. Now, there's a wheel here, and so it has to be turned around for you to see what's on the other side and stuff like that. But some of these are going to cost a certain amount of money to build. So for instance, usually this saber-tooth show would cost 3 money. But this here is a -2. So if I place my worker here, this saber-tooth show only costs me 1 money to build. That's amazing, right? But that does mean that other things could be more expensive. So for instance, this is a +2. So normally this building would cost me 3 money, but because there's a +2 at that spot, this is going to cost 5 money. Okay? So at the end of the round, this will rotate a bit. It has to. So it won't always be here at this location for that cost. But yes, this one is a -1 as well. So this labyrinth would normally cost 7, but it could cost 6 instead. The nautical turmoil here is a 0, so it's just 7 still. This one is also a 0, so the ray gun alley is still 3 costing card, and this is an 8 costing card to the bandit showdown because there's a +1 there. So when you go here, you could get a discount, or you might have to pay more based on what you're doing. And then when you decide to place a worker at this location, for the rest of the month, the rest of the round, nobody else can go to this location here, okay? They can go to the other spots, and so can you. You can build multiple cards in your turn. You just can't build the same type of card on the same turn, which is why it might be difficult to complete this kind of a goal that requires 3 undersea attractions, because you're only going to ever be able to build 1 undersea attraction per round. And with 5 rounds and potentially other players going first and taking those attractions, it may not be something you can do every game. But I was able to pull it off, thankfully. But yes, that's another thing. So that means, like I said, the player who gets this early on is going to have lots of extra money for 4 rounds, because nobody else can go there if they go there first. So it's a nice first purchase, basically, is going here, even though it costs more. That's why it costs more. For the first round, that's why this costs 5, because of that reason. But you might be able to turn the wheel, so to speak, in your favor, and in the second round, and make it a whole lot cheaper, for instance. So that's something. So that's how building is going to work. And then when you build, so let me explain the whole placement rules of building, because that's important to know. So let's just say, for instance, I wanted to build this nautical turmoil. It's going to cost me only 6 money because it's going to -1 on it. Okay, so let's just say I want to build this. Okay. It's going to cost me 6, so we'll pay that to the bank. And now I need to find nautical turmoil. Now, when placing it, I cannot place that would be an illegal placement because it's outside of my field, okay? Obviously, I can't build on top of trees, and I can't remove trees when I build. I can only remove trees if the arborist does it for me, basically. But yes, I could still potentially place this in a couple of spots. I could place it here, for instance, and that would be fine. That would work. Another thing about placement. So in order to explain further for the next placement rule is while you can have trees next to attractions, you cannot, let me find one that I can, like, here, for instance, I could not do this, for instance. On a future turn, I could not build like that. This isn't like your normal polyomino game where you're trying to like fill in your board. No, you cannot. That would be a legal placement. But I could place it here, for instance. Diagonal is fine, but it can't be touching. It can't be adjacent. That goes for concession stands as well. So you can't do attractions next to attractions, but you can't do concession stands next to attractions, and you can't do concession stands next to concession stands. So that's how that's going to work for placement rules. Now, when you place something down, it might end up covering up one of these bonuses. So this is the lightning bonus, otherwise known as the throw bonus. So when I cover it up, it's going to cause my disc to go up by 1, for instance. So let's say I built that, I paid for it, it caused it to go up by 1 there. But then you'll also get these right away as well. So while this you will not get to the end of the game because it's victory points, you'll get these bonuses for building this particular ride that has the awesome whale on it and the shark coaster. So I would get 1 more on the thrill, I'd get 1 more on the awe, I'd get 1 on the awe, and I'd get 1 on the joy as well. So that was quite awesome. Well, I'm purple, right? Not yellow, so that would be the case. Let's reverse that. There we go. So, yeah, so I'd get those awesome bonuses, and at the end of the game, this would be worth 2 victory points. So that's nice. And then after you're done, you're going to turn it over, and it's going to be on this side. So basically, I just want to place it like that. Whenever you're done with the ride, you'll place the card just like this, okay? All right, and so then that could be an action I could have done, for instance, and then, maybe I built a concession stand, and I put that here, and it's going to give me 1 joy, so we'll move up on joy again, for instance. And then, so let me see, I have a worker there then, and then let's say if I put a worker on the arborist. No, actually I don't need to remove trees right now. So let's just say I went to the banker and got some extra money, okay? Okay, so now I've got some extra money. All right, cool. All right, so now, so that basically explains everything you need to know in the actions step. Once everyone has taken their turn, everyone has taken their actions, then you move on to the next step, which is the bonuses step. So now some interesting things are going to happen here. So the player who is the highest up on the bonuses track, okay, and if you're playing a 4-player game, it's the 2 players that are highest up on each of these emotion tracks, okay? The thrill, the awe, and the joy, right? But if you're playing a 2-player game, it's just 1. 2. So 3 or 4, it's 2. 2-player, it's 1. And so basically, so with the bonuses step, if I'm highest on the thrill, okay, I have two options. I can either take a victory point token. So hey, this is another way you can get victory point tokens. It being high up during the bonuses step could get you victory point tokens. So I could take a victory point token. My second option would be to decrease my disc by 1. So I could actually end up going backwards. Now you're asking, why do I want to go backwards on the thrill track when I want to reach this location? So that way I get the 5 extra victory points. Well, for the thrill track, if I'm the highest up on the thrill track and I decide to go down instead of taking the victory point token, I get this, which gives me 4 actions for the second round. Amazing, right? That's awesome. However, if I have this already, as in I used it on a previous round and I have this, and I'm the highest still on the thrill, I must discard this, putting it back, and take the victory token instead. So I can't have this every single round in a row. So that's just how that one works. Now for the awe track, if I'm the highest on the awe track, I have the same choice in regards that I can just simply take a victory point token, or I can hand the shuffle over, and if I take the victory point token, then this shovel is going to go to the next player, basically, in turn order. So this is the first player token, so that means I'm basically letting the other player go first the next round. If I take the victory point token, I'm giving him this. Or my second option is if I have this already or don't have it, I can take it to decrease my, once again, back to here, okay? And then I get to keep it. So going backwards allows me to keep it or take it. And there's another benefit to going first, and I'll explain that in a moment. But yes, that's another thing that you can do. Now, when there is a tie, so if a player was tied with another player on these tracks, and whether you were scoring victory points or getting these extra bonuses, like getting the extra turn or getting to take the shovel, it's the player who has their disc on top of the other player that will actually get to do this, okay? So when you're moving up, okay, so when something causes me to move this up by 1, well, I'll just go on top of that player like so. If you're at the highest rank, so let's say I was, both me and my opponent are at max on the awe track, and something tells me to go up another one, and I'm at the bottom, instead of, well, I can't obviously go up any farther, but if I'm at the bottom, I at least can switch that around and be the top again. So that's something, because like I said, it's the player who's highest up on top of on the disc that gets to these bonuses, okay? So that's how that's going to work, right? And then the last one, so let me explain the last one. So the last one, once again, you can choose to take a victory point token, or you can choose to decrease this again to obtain 3 money. Isn't that nice? That might be worth doing too. Money is hard to get in this game, so that might be something worth doing. So basically, if you're working on the joy track, you're potentially getting more money. If you're working on the awe track, you're potentially going to be going first a lot. If you're working on the thrill track, you're potentially going to get this a lot. Now remember, you can't get it 2 rounds in a row, but you could potentially get it 2 times in the course of the game. It's possible. So, you know, that's the advantages of those tracks, of those emotion tracks, okay? So that's how the bonuses step is going to work. Now let me explain the advertising step next. So during the advertising step, every single one of your rides, well, you want people to know about your rides. And so you want to put an ad in the newspaper about your ride. But doing so is going to cost money. So if I wanted to do this for the advertising phase, it would cost me 3 money for this particular card, but if I spend the 3 money, which is why I held on to that extra money, if I spend the 3 money now, I'm going to get 2 victory points because that's what this particular attraction is giving me. It's based on that number there. But hey, I'd get 2 extra victory points, so that's the way you're going to score victory points during the course of the game. Another way is by advertising your attractions, okay? So that's how the advertising step works. And then cleanup, which is fairly simple. Refresh your concessions. So if there's still some concessions available here that weren't taken, then you discard them and you draw more. Another thing that's going to happen is you get your workers back. Simple enough. And then you'll also move the month marker up by 1, you know. And if it's the last game, then obviously if it's the last round, then you wouldn't, and you'd go to game end and get your victory points, final victory points and stuff. But then the one advantage to going first and having this shovel is when you have this shovel, it allows you to rotate the carousel however you choose. It cannot stay in the same spot. It does need to rotate at least a little bit, but you get to choose where you want these to go. So since you're going first, you can be like, well, I want to buy this particular building here, and I want it to be as cheap as possible so I can get the labyrinth for just 5 money because I'm going first. So that's the advantage to taking the shovel. Not only are you going first, but you're basically making it so that your first turn, if you're planning on, obviously building, you're making it cheaper for yourself. And that's the advantage of that. And so that's basically everything you need to know in order to play Tenpenny Parks. I hope this video helped you guys out in understanding how to play this game. And one other thing. So I didn't explain all of the placement bonuses, but unless you're playing with if you're playing with the Fairview Adventures, all of your Fairview boards are going to be the same for bonuses, but if you cover up the lightning, you'll go up on the throw track. If you cover up the star, you'll go up on the awe track. There's a heart here, so if you cover this up, you'll go up on the joy track. If you cover up this, you'll get 2 money instantly if you cover that one up. And if you cover up this one, this is a wild. So this one allows you to move up 2 of these of your choice. So I could go up 2 on 1 if I wanted to, or I could be like, well, I'm going to go up one here and 1 here, for instance, as an example. So, but that's everything you need to know in order to play this game. I hope you guys liked the video. Have a nice day.